Welcome to the True Assassins podcast. Today, we're diving deep, really deep into, well, the shadowy world, I guess you could say, of justice and vengeance. And it's a fascinating area. And you guys, you sent us some really, really intense material, stuff that hints at, individuals who've been through some seriously tough times, hardship, betrayal, and they kind of emerged, transformed almost into these agents of, well, retribution.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to unpack these stories together today, see what we can learn, what kind of insights we can uncover for you. And for this deep dive, we're drawing inspiration, a lot of it, from Orlando Madsbrine's book, True Kill.
Yeah. What really hits you, even though these stories are set in such different times and places, is how they both, really show that basic human response to injustice, to being betrayed.
Yeah. Okay, so our first story takes us to this very strict Puritan community that Madsbrine depicts in True Kill. And it's the story of Hester Prynne, branded, outcast for adultery, forced to wear that scarlet letter A. She seems like, a total outcast, right? But the material you sent from True Kill suggests something way more, complex is the word. Like there's this transformation, something beyond just shame happening.
Exactly. It's so vivid, the way Madsbrine describes it, this public humiliation.
Mm-hmm.
But then it takes this turn, the story, you start to see that Hester's not just passively accepting this. It's like she takes that punishment and makes it into something else, something unexpected, a weapon, almost.
Then the second story pulls us into, well, Victorian London, the dark side of it, obviously. Madsbrine gets into that a lot in True Kill. And it's Oliver Twist, but not the innocent orphan, the one we kind of expect. This version, well, he uses what he learned the hard way and goes after those who, exploited him.
It's a big shift, right? I mean, you go from this community obsessed with morality, with watching everyone, to the darkness and anonymity of a huge city.
Mm-hmm.
But both Hester and Oliver, well, they find their own way in these systems. They find a way to get back at those who wronged them.
Yeah. So what we're going to try to do today, using these pretty dark stories from True Kill as a guide, is figure out how these people who've been crushed by society, by the people they trusted, how do they turn into these figures who create their own kind of justice? They're operating outside the law in the shadows. What drives them to change like this? How do they do it? And what does it tell us about, well, power, guilt, and, that very human need for revenge that Madsbrine explores so well in his work?
Yeah.
All right, let's start with Hester Prynne. Our source material from True Kill kind of reveals her as this, like, Scarlet Avenger. We talked about that initial image, the shaming, the scarlet letter. But then the text suggests this shame, it becomes powerful, like a weapon. How does that happen? The way Madsbrine describes it, that fire in her soul, colder than the burning letter, that feels crucial.
Oh, yeah, that contrast that Madsbrine sets up, it's essential to understanding Hester. They want to break her with that letter, isolate her. But like you said, that fire in her soul, colder, almost like she's hardened, refusing to be destroyed by their shame. And what's so interesting, and what Madsbrine really gets at, is that it doesn't stay inside her, that strength. It starts to change the whole dynamic between Hester and those who condemned her. It's like by not breaking, she makes them question themselves.
Yeah. Madsbrine describes how the community reacts to her. At first, it's all this, like, pious malice. But then their eyes, they start to, like, skitter away. There's fear there. What do you think is causing that fear in them?
I think it comes from her refusal to be controlled. Madsbrine shows how she walks among them. It's not surrender, it's defiance. They wanted her broken, hidden away. But she's there constantly. And that strength that we talk about, it unnerves them. They can't understand it. They can't control it. And so they start to fear it.
And then there's this really fascinating thing. Madsbrine introduces Hester's needlework. It's not just, her punishment anymore, but it becomes like these cryptic warnings. He gives examples like, blood red blooms on an adulterous deacon's tunic. It's vivid, but he emphasizes it's not magic, just meticulous thread. But then there's this gossip, the fear of, the supernatural amplifying it. So subtle, but so powerful.
Absolutely. This is where Hester's, her cleverness really comes through. Yeah. She takes this thing forced on her, this needlework, and turns it into something else entirely. You're right, the thread itself isn't magic. But Madsbrine shows how it works on them, on their anxieties, their guilt. These little details, these cryptic warnings, they become like these omens to them. It's like she's using their own beliefs against them. It's almost genius the way Madsbrine writes it.
Her exile in the forest, Madsbrine contrasts that with how it becomes her hunting ground. And her knowledge of the forest, which they saw as witchcraft, that becomes her arsenal. What does that say about her, how she adapts, how she uses her environment?
The forest is where they sent her to, to be cast out.
Yeah.
But she doesn't just survive there. She learns it. She knows it inside and out.
Yeah.
And that knowledge, what they feared, it becomes her power. It's a place where their rules don't really apply, where she has a kind of freedom they don't. She's not a victim out there. She's in control.
Then Madsbrine gets into some specific things that happen. The magistrate's stores start rotting, blight that only she knew how to conjure. And then there's the Reverend choking after, and I'm quoting here, a spider's venom slipped into his wine. Madsbrine implies she's involved, but it's ambiguous. Is it direct action? Or is she manipulating things? He says, it wasn't magic, only meticulous thread. So maybe it's more calculated, less supernatural.
Right, right. It's brilliant how Madsbrine does that. He makes you wonder. He gives you these hints, the blight, the venom. But then he reminds you it's all about the meticulous thread. It makes you think, is she causing these things directly? Or is she setting things up, knowing how they think, how superstitious they are, and letting their own guilt and fear destroy them?
Yeah. He calls her a shadow in plain sight. And it's interesting, this mad woman with the scarlet mark, she's everywhere, but she's also this constant reminder of their judgment. Madsbrine writes that their paranoia becomes delicious to her. There's a real psychological element to her revenge.
It's that paradox, that makes her so powerful. The Scarlet Letter is supposed to isolate her, to mark her, but it also makes her instantly recognizable, a constant reminder. And because she doesn't break, she doesn't hide, it eats away at them. Their fear, their guilt, it feeds her in a way. It's like she's not just surviving their punishment, she's turning it against them.
Madsbrine also gets into her relationship with Dimmesdale. It's complicated, there's hatred, but also this twisted hope for redemption. He's the community's golden boy, and it seems like she wants him to suffer more than just confessing.
Yeah, their relationship, it's so messed up. They share this sin, but he gets to hide while she's punished for both of them.
Yeah.
He embodies everything she hates about them, about their hypocrisy. I think that twisted hope for redemption, it comes from wanting him to face what they did, for both of them to really be punished. But there's also that hatred, for his cowardice. And because he's so revered, his fall would be even more devastating. She wants him to be exposed completely.
Okay, so there's this really important scene where Dimmesdale confesses. He thinks, he'll be redeemed by showing some mark of his sin. But he finds, and I'm quoting again, nothing but unmarked skin. And then Hester shows her Scarlet Letter. It's not about sharing his guilt. She's carried that alone for years. What's happening there, in your opinion?
This is it, the climax of their story. Dimmesdale's confession, it's all for show. He thinks showing a fake wound will get him sympathy, make him seem even more holy somehow. But there's nothing there. It's all a lie. And when Hester shows her letter, it's not about sharing the burden anymore. It's about exposing him, showing the difference between his hidden sin and her constant punishment. She's forcing them to see him for what he really is.
And the crowd, Madsbrine writes how they change. They go from lambs to wolves. It's not Hester doing something directly, but it's their disillusionment that destroys Dimmesdale. It shows how fragile faith can be, how quickly it can turn into something else.
Exactly. Dimmesdale's power, it all came from their belief in him. When that's gone, he's nothing. And Madsbrine shows that so well, how quickly they turn on him. They feel betrayed, lied to. It's like their anger at him, at being deceived, it consumes them.
Madsbrine makes it clear that Hester, she doesn't get revenge in the usual sense. But the meaning of that Scarlet Letter, it changes. It's not just her shame anymore, but it reflects the hypocrisy of the community, the cruelty they hide behind their piety.
Right. Hester will always carry the scars of what they did to her. But the letter, it becomes something else. She doesn't break. She stands up to them. And in doing that, it stops being just about her sin. It starts to show their sin, their judgment, their cruelty. The letter, it's like a mirror held up to them.
Madsbrine talks about Hester's daughter returning years later as this vibrant echo of her defiance. And those stories, the tales of the Scarlet Avenger, it suggests that Hester, she had a bigger impact than they thought.
Her daughter, coming back like that, it's like a continuation of Hester's spirit. She shows how much she resisted them, how strong she was. And those stories, those whispers about this Scarlet Avenger, it suggests that she became more than just a woman they punished. She became, a symbol, a legend maybe. And that's something they couldn't control.
Madsbrine ends this part of the story with Hester, older now, but unbroken. The letter's faded, but it's still there, a symbol of her defiance. And her needle, Madsbrine says, it flashes with a kind of cunning. They never really understood her, did they? And he leaves us with this line, what could a shamed woman possibly do? It's like they still underestimate her.
It's such a strong ending, the way Madsbrine writes it. Even after all that time, they still don't get it. They see her as this shamed woman, but they're blind to her strengths, her intelligence. They made her into something they don't understand, and that's what makes her so dangerous to them.
Okay, let's move on now. Still in the world of True Kill, but we're going to Victorian London. A huge change in setting and a big change for Oliver Twist. He's not a victim anymore. He's like a ghost haunting the streets. And the fog, that classic London fog, Madsbrine makes it his welcome accomplice.
Yeah, it's a big shift. We go from that small, judgmental community to this huge, dark city. And Oliver, he changes too. He's not just surviving anymore. He's become something else, something hidden, something dangerous.
Madsbrine describes Oliver going back to Fagin's place, you know, that den of thieves and the stench of greed. It's almost like you can smell it. And they've just replaced him with more kids, more victims. It shows how brutal that world was, how they exploited everyone.
That return to Fagin's, it's like a reminder of everything Oliver went through, everything he escaped. And the way Madsbrine describes it, the greed is like this sickness, this rot. And yeah, the other kids, just more victims. It shows how little they cared, how they just used people up and moved on.
But Oliver, he's not stealing anymore. He's there to, and I'm quoting again, to repay a debt. Madsbrine tells us about this new mentor, an old watchmaker. But he doesn't just teach him about watches, he also teaches him about blades concealed and the inner workings of a lock or a man. That's where he learns to kill.
This is where everything changes for Oliver. He's not driven by need anymore. It's this desire for justice, for revenge. And the watchmaker, he gives him the tools for that, the skills. But it's more than just how to use a weapon. It's like he's learning how to take apart, to destroy not just a lock, but a person.
And then Madsbrine describes how he kills the artful dodger. It's so quick, so precise. Between his ribs, with the precision of a surgeon, a startled gurgle. And then all that stolen money, it's just useless. It's a really powerful scene, the way Madsbrine writes it.
It's chilling the way Madsbrine describes it. So cold, so efficient. That precision of a surgeon, it shows how Oliver's learned to kill not out of anger, but out of, I don't know, a kind of necessity.
Yeah.
And the money, yeah, it's meaningless in the face of death. All that stealing, it amounted to nothing.
Fagin, though, he goes from greed to pure fear. People are talking about a ghost. Oliver's become this psychological weapon, terrifying everyone.
You can feel the fear, the way Madsbrine writes it. Fagin, he's not in control anymore. The whispers about a ghost, it plays on their guilt, their superstitions. They know what they've done, and now they're afraid of what's coming for them.
Madsbrine then describes how Oliver goes after others. The magistrate, poisoned, the workhouse matron, garroted. It's so different from Hester, so direct, so brutal.
Yeah, there's no subtlety here, no playing with their minds.
Yeah.
This is pure, raw vengeance. He's targeting those who represent the system, the people who abused their power, who made his life hell. It's a different kind of justice, but just as powerful as Hester's.
Madsbrine describes how the underworld reacts. There's fear, obviously, but also a kind of strange hope. Even corrupt officials start to look the other way. It's like his actions are changing things, even if it's through fear.
It's like he's become this force of nature, this thing they can't control. And yeah, there's fear, but some people, they see it as a kind of a balancing of the scales. The corrupt officials, they're scared, they're losing their grip, and maybe, just maybe, it gives some space for the people they were exploiting to breathe a little easier.
Fagin, though, he becomes totally paranoid. All that wealth, and it can't protect him. Madsbrine describes him swinging from the rafters, and everyone knows it wasn't suicide. It's chilling how Oliver gets his final revenge.
You know, in the end, Fagin's greed, it's what destroys him. He built his power on exploitation, on cruelty, and Oliver, he becomes the embodiment of that coming back to haunt him. That image of him hanging, it's like a final judgment.
Even after Fagin's dead, Madsbrine writes how Oliver's still out there, this unseen presence, and it keeps those who prey on the weak afraid. It's like his work isn't done.
Yeah, even with Fagin gone, the fear remains. And that fear, it's a kind of justice in itself. It means they can't operate the way they used to. They know someone's watching, someone's waiting.
Madsbrine doesn't shy away from how complicated this all is. He says he was no savior. Blood clung to his hands. But he also calls him a specter of justice born in the squalor of their own making, a echo of their sins made manifest. It's a lot to unpack there.
Right. Oliver's not a hero. He's killed people. But Madsbrine makes you think about why. Is it justice? Is it revenge? Maybe it's both. He's a product of their cruelty, a mirror reflecting their own darkness back at them.
In the last line, Madsbrine connects it back to Oliver's past. He writes how his abusers taught him well how to stalk unseen, how to strike a killing blow. But now he chooses his own targets. It's a chilling ending, a warning to everyone like them.
Yeah, it's like they created their own monster, They
Yeah.
taught him how to survive, how to kill. And in doing that, they gave him the power to destroy them. And the way Madsbrine ends it, it's like he's still out there, and those who think they're above the law, above justice, they should be afraid.
So we've gone through these two really intense stories drawn from the world of Orlando Madsbrine's True Kill. What should you, our listeners, take away from all this? You sent us these examples of people who, well, they were pushed too far. They were broken by society, by betrayal, and they chose a path of, well, of getting even their own way.
What's really interesting, I think, is how different their approaches are.
Yeah.
Hester, with her subtle manipulations, her psychological warfare, and Oliver with his direct, brutal actions. But they both find a kind of justice outside the law, outside the normal rules.
Hester's story, it shows how powerful subtle actions can be. It's about understanding the fears, the weaknesses of those in power. She didn't use violence, but she used their own system against them, their beliefs, their secrets.
Right. It's a slow burn, but it's just as effective. And in a way even more unsettling because it's so hard to pin down, so hard to fight against.
Oliver, though, he reacts with violence, with force. It's a direct response to the horrors he experienced. It's about destroying the people who represent that system, the abusers, the exploiters.
And it's effective in its own way, creating fear, disrupting the established order.
But they both force us to ask a really tough question. What is justice? What happens when the system fails? When the law protects the powerful, not the victims? Do people have the right to create their own justice, even if it means breaking the rules? True Kill really makes you think about that.
It does. It challenges our assumptions about good and evil, about right and wrong. It shows how these things can get blurred, especially when people are pushed to their limits.
And what about them, Hester and Oliver? Did they find peace? Madsbrine hints that their past, that trauma, it never really leaves them. Maybe getting revenge, it doesn't heal those wounds.
It's hard to imagine they ever truly escape what happened to them. The scars, both physical and emotional, run deep. And the things they did, even for a good cause, well, those leave their own kind of mark.
These stories, they might be set in different times, different places, but they both show how strong the human spirit can be. And also, how seductive that desire for control, for revenge, can be when all else fails. We hope this deep dive into the True Assassins podcast, using the incredible material you sent us, has given you something to think about. What other hidden stories of resistance, of retribution, are out there waiting to be discovered? What happens when the victim becomes the judge, the executioner? These are the kind of questions we explore here in the shadows. Keep searching, keep questioning, and thank you for joining us on the True Assassins podcast. Rate and follow the show for more addictive Cloak and Dagger stories.